February 19th, 1971. Two teenagers were hitchhiking down Interstate 75 near the Lake Panasoffkee Bridge in Sumter County, Florida. The pair were making their way to a Mardi Gras celebration when they saw what they thought to be a person floating in the shallow water. And sadly, they were right. They signalled for help and a passing state trooper responded to their plea. Within hours, first responders were at the scene, desperately trying to make sense of what had happened and save the unknown woman. Sadly, this would not be a cut-and-dry case for investigators, and even in 2021, we are still left wondering, who is Little Miss Lake Panasoffkee? As police arrived on the scene, it became increasingly apparent that this wasn't just a tragic accident. Little Miss P had been in the lake for an extended period of time. Her PMI, which is the post-mortem index, is listed by the Doe Network as between 2 weeks to 30 days, and her remains are listed as decomposing and in a state of putrefaction. Now we get to the details of Little Miss P. Little Miss P was described as a white, or possibly European, female with long brown hair, and possibly brown eyes. She was estimated to be anywhere between 17 and 24 years old, and it was determined that she had given birth at least once in her life, if not twice. The Doe Network has been an invaluable source for this episode, and they have been my main source of information today. The Doe Network are incredible, and I highly encourage you to donate to them or support them wherever you can. Little Miss P was clearly well cared for in her life. She had undergone a whole host of procedures and surgeries in her short life. At some point in her teenage years, the Watson-Jones orthopedic technique was carried out on her right ankle. 2 holes were drilled and then a tendon was fed through the holes to help combat her ankle instability. The coroner and anthropologist estimated that the surgery took place between 1967 and 1970. The coroner also found Harris lines on her bones, indicating that in her childhood she had suffered from either illness or malnutrition, which had affected her growth. It wasn't just in life that Little Miss P had suffered, though. The coroner also found that ribs 1 and 3 were fractured peri-mortem, which means in the immediate moments before death. From the get-go, Little Miss P's cause of death was blaringly obvious. As soon as investigators got up close, they saw that this had not been a tragic accident. At first, they wondered if a Mardi Gras partygoer had somehow gotten too drunk and ended up in the water, but as they approached, they learnt the sickening truth. Little Miss P had been strangled to death with a man's size 36 belt. Now, they knew the size because it was still wrapped around her throat when they found her. It was determined that she had been strangled elsewhere before being dumped in Lake Panasoffkee by her killer. Little Miss P was found clothed wearing a shawl with a white and green pattern, tartan, or some of you might know it as plaid, trousers, and a bright green t-shirt with 3/4 length sleeves. She was also found with a white gold Ladies Baylor brand watch on her left hand, which to me personally makes it that she was right-handed because you always wear your watch on the opposite side. Not sure, that's just speculation. She was also wearing a yellow gold ring with a small stone on her left ring finger, which to me seems like an engagement ring, and a small gold necklace. What also stood out to investigators was that she had extensive dental work. She had silver fillings and a porcelain crown. So at one point in her life, she had been well cared for and had money to access dental services. Little Miss Lake Panasoffkee was laid to rest in Oak Grove Cemetery in Wildwood, Florida. She has no name or date of birth to adorn her headstone. Just a date of death. providing a bleak reminder to all those who come across her grave. Investigators originally believed that Little Miss P was either European or possibly Native American. It wouldn't be until 2012 that the truth would be confirmed. It was in 2012 that her body was exhumed and isotope testing was performed on her teeth. These tests revealed that Little Miss P was most likely Greek, and more specifically from the areas of Athens, Laveiron, or Larum. These tests were performed by George Kamenov of the University of Florida's Geology Department. Little Miss P's teeth showed a high concentration of lead, something that in the towns listed above in Greece are known for. These tests also showed investigators that Little Miss P had been in the US for around 10 to 12 months before her death, so the US was literally just a blip on her radar. One theory immediately jumps out at all those who searched Little Miss P's case, whether that's on the internet or professionally, and that is the possibility that she is a Greek woman called Constantina, and it's a theory that I'm going to focus heavily on for this episode because I believe it does hold a lot of weight. On November 30th, 2012, a Greek TV show aired appealing for anyone with information to come forward. The host of the show aired on Alpha TV asked for anyone from the community of Lavero or the surrounding areas to look into any missing persons cases involving young women from 1969 to 1971. What was revealed during the TV show was that Little Miss P was found near the area of Tarpon Springs in Florida, which at the time had a very large and very active Greek community. The host also adds that the woman in question may have not actually been reported missing, and that the local community needed to rally together, discuss people who maybe they haven't seen for a long time, and sort of just get to the bottom of this mystery. It was also hypothesized that Little Miss P was actually invited to the US as part of a job program and didn't necessarily volunteer to go there herself. Now, during this part of the program, it takes a chilling twist, and a chilling and sort of really upsetting phone call comes in that just leaves the whole studio in complete shock. I will include a clip of the telephone call here, but it's all in Greek, so obviously I don't speak Greek. If anyone speaks Greek, then you'll be able to understand, but thankfully the YouTube video that I found had English subtitles, so I was able to watch the full video and understand what was going on.
Μακάρι, τι να σας πω.
Το ύψος της ήταν εδώ, βλέπουμε...
Ήτανε κοντούλα, εγώ ήμουν πιο ψηλή από αυτή και καλά και εγώ δεν είμαι... Αλλά ναι, ήτανε κοντούλα, αλλά θυμάμαι τα μαγουλάκια της γιατί όλο ήτανε και καλό κορίτσι, όλο τη τσιμπάγαμε γιατί είχε πεταχτά μαγουλάκια.
Μάλιστα. Άλλη λεπτομέρεια δεν μπορείτε να θυμηθείτε τώρα.
Δεν μπορώ να θυμηθώ, όχι, λυπάμαι. Αλλά δηλαδή τι να σας πω, τώρα έτσι όπως τη βλέπω να τριχιάζω. Μου θύμισε παλιά. Λοιπόν, δεν έχω κάτι άλλο να σας πω. Εγώ τι να σας πω, έχω τρελαθεί. Εγώ είμαι σίγουρη ότι πρέπει να είναι η Ντίνα μου. Θα κοιτάξω τις φωτογραφίες μου, αύριο πρωί θα αρχίσω εσκαφές. Και θα σας στείλω, εντάξει, γιατί βγάζαμε φωτογραφίες και ειδικά όταν κλείσαμε, όταν φεύγαμε με τις βαλίτσες έτσι, ήμασταν όλες μαζί και βγάζαμε φωτογραφία.
Όπου είναι πολύ σημαντική η μαρτυρία σας, γιατί...
Μακάρι να μπορέσω να βοηθήσω. Ξέρω, σας λέω τώρα, θυμήθηκα έτσι γιατί τα έφερα. Είχε έναν αδερφό Στέλιο και υπήρχε και βάση μάλλον που υπηρετούσε ο αδερφός της ναύτης εκεί στο Λαύριο. Σε λέει είναι κοντά στο σπίτι.
During the original recording of the TV show, the studio had phone lines open where people were free to call in tips. As soon as the call came in, the host demanded to speak to the caller on the line, turned to the camera, and told the audience that there was someone on the line who claimed to know Little Miss P. The caller starts off by explaining how she was extremely distressed after seeing the reconstruction photo on the TV show, and you can clearly hear the pain in her voice as she explains her story. The caller claims that she and Little Miss P, who the caller claims is named Constantina, went to a school together located in Kafissa between 1969 and 1970. She recalls that the school may have been called Demi, D-E-M-E, and it was a housekeeping and trade school for young women. These sorts of schools were opened under the Marshall Plan, which was a directive launched in 1948, equipped with $15 billion, and the directive sought to sort of rebuild post-war Europe. The school taught girls how to be housewives, to cook, to clean, as well as teaching them English, so that they could be sort of repatriated to the USA, to Australia, other places, and to work, and to hopefully send money back to their families. She goes on to say that the girl's name was Constantina, or Dina as they had affectionately nicknamed her, and she recalls how her and the other girls doted on Dina and used to pinch her chubby cheeks. Now, with her saying that she used to dote on her, it makes me think that perhaps Constantina was younger, or the youngest of them all, putting her at the lower end of the age estimation. That's just a speculation once again. The caller then also says that Constantina, as she remembered her, had a rounder face and thicker eyebrows than Little Miss P, but she was sure in her heart of hearts that the sketch was her long-lost friend, Dina. The woman goes on to say how she was sent to Australia to work, whilst Constantina was sent to where else but the US. The girls had no idea where or even who they were going to end up going to. They just knew that they were there to work and start a better life for themselves, really. Once the girls had arrived in their host countries, they lived in dormitories, with the lucky ones even being offered the chance to study at universities and colleges. The caller tells the host that she had been sent to Sydney and was lucky enough to be given a place in a nursing school. The pain in the caller's voice is heartbreaking, to say the least. It was a difficult video for me to watch, and she apologises over and over and over again for not being able to be of more help. The pain and the hurt is extremely apparent in her voice, and she's extremely distressed. You'll have heard from the clip that she's very distressed, almost like she's reliving something horrific, but the only extra information that she could think of at the time was that Constantina had a brother who was called Stelios, and he was a sailor stationed in Livero. The caller mentions that Stelios and Constantina seemed close, but Constantina never mentioned her parents, which is strange to say the least. The caller also revealed during her phone call to the TV studio that she and Constantina were the first group of girls to travel to their prospective countries via airplane and not boat. So, hopefully, records of these flights still exist, in some capacity, but due to Greece's troubling history and them being under a brutal dictatorship for many years during that time, thanks SOE, these records may have likely been destroyed, they may have not been archived properly, There's a whole host of possibilities as to why we might not be able to see the consignment. After this call had finished, hundreds, and I mean hundreds of other calls poured in with details about the school. One man called to say that his mother was a teacher at the school between 1969 and 1971, but sadly she was now too old to remember any of the girls or their names. However, in a stroke of luck, he did have photographs from that time. He also said that the school was under the direction of the ICM, which stands for the International Committee of Migrants, and was set up by the UN as part of the Marshall Plan, which, as I mentioned before, sought to pump money back into Europe, rebuild everything after the Second World War, even though that was kind of futile in Greece considering everything that they had going on, but an attempt was made. Another caller told the TV station that during the 70s he had a friend named Stelios, who was from Livero, and Stelios just so happened to have a younger sister who went to the school and was later sent to the US to work. The school that Little Miss P may have attended was opened in 1952 and located on Levidew Street in Kifissa. Liviro is 38 miles away from Kifissa, and Liviro sits on the sort of southern edge of Greece. It looks very beautiful. On December 7th, 2012, the show re-aired for a second time, but this time with a photograph provided by the first female caller. The photo shows a group of young women, with one woman in particular being singled out. This girl is believed to be Little Miss Lake Panasoffkee. The son of the school teacher who I mentioned in the calls from the first airing of the episode also provided a photo which was shown during the second re-airing. This photo highlighted two women who looked similar to Little Miss P, and both of these women had actually been sent to the US. One of the women from the second photo was tentatively ruled out, as the show received a call from the supposed daughter of that woman, claiming that she was, very much alive and well and had come back to Greece, started a family, but obviously, without further proof, I'm just going to say, alleged. The greatest lead that we have in the case of Little Miss P is that of Constantina. Although that's not to say that we shouldn't rule out any other possibilities, and we shouldn't put our blinkers on and just focus on one idea on one person. One possibility I haven't seen anywhere is that Little Miss P was maybe picked up from the Mardi Gras celebrations. I'm not sure if that was something she'd wanted to have attend. Not sure, but it's something, obviously, again, we can't rule out. Perhaps the Constantina connection is a mere coincidence. I personally don't think that's likely, but of course, we must always keep an open mind when approaching these cases. There was one thing about Little Miss P's case that did strike me as odd, though. Little Miss P wasn't found wearing a cross or any form of religious insignia or jewellery. From what I understand, Greeks follow Greek Orthodoxy, which is a branch of Eastern Christian Orthodoxy, with a staggering 98% of Greeks identifying themselves as following Greek Orthodoxy in some capacity or another. Now, that's not to say that Little Miss P wasn't religious or orthodox. That is, of course, a possibility. There are maybe two explanations I can think as to why she wasn't found wearing anything religious. Number one, she may have become less devout following a move to the US. The investigators also commented that she changed her diet when she moved to a more American Western diet, maybe trying to fit in a little bit more with the women her age. Or two, perhaps her killer removed any religious jewellery from her. If they knew that was a sign of Greek Orthodoxy, or maybe had a name or something personally religious inscribed on it, then they might have thought, well, that could be used to identify her, so if we take it and remove it, that might stop investigators figuring out so fast that she's Greek and figuring out who she is. That's just a thought. Remember how the caller said that they remembered Constantina as being chubbier and having bushy eyebrows? Little Miss P wasn't found with either of those. But again, it's possible that she had changed her appearance to try and Americanise herself, and of course, with the chubby cheeks, as we age and sort of mature, if she was on the 17, 18, 19 end of the age spectrum, you lose your puppy fat, your face might mature a little bit, so that could be the explanation why, and then the eyebrows again, more Western, more Americanised. Given the fact that she was 17 to 24 years old in 1971, puts her date of birth from 1947 to 1954. This time period explains why she was malnourished in her early and formative years, as post-war Greece was at that time facing a civil war and a brutal dictatorship. Then we also have to consider the possibility that Little Miss P's family sent her to the ICM boarding school, which is the ICM, the school where she was, where they did the cooking, the cleaning, the English stuff, because perhaps she'd gotten pregnant or maybe done something that they deemed shameful and no longer wanted her in the family. This might seem like a bit of an odd conclusion to come to, but I've heard many stories from elderly family members or just elderly people in general about girls in the 50s and 60s being sent away for getting pregnant out of wedlock or being rebellious, doing something that would bring their family shame. And maybe Constantina's family thought that if we send her to this boarding school and send her to the US, it'll straighten her out and, she'll learn how to behave, etc., and come back changed. Or maybe they just wanted to send her off to the US because they didn't want anything else to do with her. Many of the girls who were sent away during the 50s and 60s were given the choice of going to a mother and baby home or being disowned by their family and having to go it alone. Little Miss P's autopsy states that she had given birth at least once, although it doesn't give us an exact time, or year when she had probably given birth. Meaning that, perhaps, the child of Little Miss P could be living in the USA, wondering what happened to their mother. Remember, Little Miss P had been in the USA from between 10 and 12 months, which is possible. It would be a very quick conception. It may have not been consensual, of course, but, it's possible that she could have gotten pregnant, given birth, and then maybe the father of the child killed her because he didn't want the child, or, maybe he had a family, a wife, a girlfriend, and, there are so many things that could have happened in Little Miss P's case, and until we find out who she is and who killed her, they're just going to remain theories. It could also have been that her family sent her to the school because they wanted her to have a better life than what they were able to provide at the time. As mentioned before, Greece was in turmoil, and perhaps Little Miss P's parents bought into the idea of the all-American dream. She would get an education, she would learn English, she would meet a good man, and, he would be a good husband, and they would have kids, and the car, and the house, and maybe they bought into that idea and thought, it's better than what we're facing here, but sadly, it ended in tragedy. Now comes the question, who killed Little Miss P? Is another member of the nearby Tapron Greek community responsible for her murder? Or was Little Miss P killed by someone else that she put her trust into, only to be deceived? Little Miss P is described as a Greek female between the ages of 17 and 24 years old, and isotope testing reveals that she is most likely from Lavero, Greece. She is 5 foot to 5'5", with possibly brown hair and possibly brown eyes. She was found on February 19th, 1971, and her DNA and dentals are available for comparison. If you have any information, you are urged to contact the following authorities. You can contact Detective Darren Norris of the Sumter County Sheriff Office on 1-352-569-1600, quoting case number 710291, or, if you'd prefer, you can contact the District 5 Medical Examiner's Office on 1-352-326-5961, quoting case number A1071. My sources for today have been the Doe Network, Reddit, Namus, the University of Florida Forensics page, and YouTube. So thank you to whoever transcribed that whole 25-minute YouTube video into English. You are an angel. Thank you to the Doe Network and Namus for not letting Little Miss P's case go forgotten. Stay safe and stay spooky.